My goodness, this is our 25th year. Is that right, Earl? 25 years. And earlier than that, I don't know how long before that, but I ran into an old friend of yours. You know what? I have their card. I'll tell you about their name after service. But they came for the tag sale. Wait a minute. Is Alex here? Alex, what was their name? The Boltons. Do you remember them? Well, you will. Because he knew you before you went to Elam. He went to Pinecrest, and you went to Elam. And they came, and he talked about how the call of God was on your life. You know who I'm talking about now, yeah. And somewhere, you know, the Lord always gives vision. And Pastor Earl had a vision for East Haddam. And he went to Elam, and that vision just got stronger and stronger and stronger. And aren't you glad he did? Amen. Amen. And so, it has not been, easy for Earl and Helen, you know. Whenever the Lord moves us and changes us or whatever, sometimes it's not fun and it's not easy. But praise God. God is the great healer of us all. Amen. And the Lord brings us back, and it's just so amazing, that we're together today. And those of you that this is your first time here, welcome. Those of you who have been around before, welcome. But I just want to say before everybody, I preached here before I preached anywhere, Earl, because you believed in me, and I have never forgotten that. You have always been very special, and I've always loved you you and Helen, of course, very, very much. And so it is a great honor. Earl and Helen are going to Florida. And may I say, when I got up this morning and put my feet on that cold tile floor, I was like, take me with you, take me with you. But what a great honor for Earl to come back and be a part of this. Listen, we have a cake in the back in your honor, and we have 3 kinds of soup that Julie Polaria worked on last night to make sure we could have some nice hot soup and then a piece of cake and coffee. And so, you know, this is really quite a celebration. And so it is a great honor, Earl, to have you come and just share with us. Why don't you come on up, and Helen, just wave to everybody so people know who you are.
Thank you. I have to get my water. I have new teeth. They dry my mouth out. Sorry. I really do thank you. Vicki said about coming back. Basically, I walked out from behind the pulpit 12 years ago, and I haven't been back behind it to preach in 12 years. Not to preach. I've been behind it. I've done other things, but I haven't preached for 12 years. So some of my friends came waiting 12 years to hear me again. Some came to hear me for the first time, wondering what I really sounded like. But I really do appreciate it. And I really, when we started this singing, Jesus, I sing for all you've done for me, this is what I wrote. Jesus, I sing for all you've done for me. Jesus wants to do more for you this morning, to release you from captivity in areas of your life, some of which you and I have made for ourselves. This morning is a time of freedom and release. If you desire it, Jesus came to give it. I want you to hear that. Those of you who know me know I don't say, thus saith the Lord, very, very easily. But thus saith the Lord. It's there for you. The release is here. And I believe that in my heart. Some people say you have to learn stuff and know it well to teach it. I believe just the opposite. The best way to learn something is to teach it. And God's been teaching me things. So in essence, I'm going to preach this morning, but I'm going to teach because I need to learn. Is that okay? So I'm not preaching at you, I'm teaching me. That fair enough? That okay? You know, that's where I'm at, because this is what God has been doing with me, for quite a while now, but really has taken hold in probably the last month, where it's really begun to take hold and to grab hold of me. And God is working on me about what we're going to talk. And I'm going to run with two scriptures, and I'm going to run with two words. Two words that Cheryl will recognize right away when I say them. But the two scriptures, one is Psalm 133. Let me read it for you. How good and pleasant it is when brothers live together in unity. It is like a precious oil poured on the head, running down on the beard, running down on Aaron's beard, down upon the collar of his robes. It is as if the dew of Hermon were falling on Mount Zion. For there the Lord bestows his blessings, even life forevermore. How good and pleasant it is when brothers dwell together in unity, because there's the blessings of the Lord. How many of you want God's blessings? This is called Christ Community Church. Last time I was here, I said something about going out into the community, but we got to look at the community here. This is community, and this is part of it. And how pleasant it is when we dwell together in unity. Now, unity doesn't mean we always agree. How many of you know that? But what do we do when we disagree? You know, are we disagreeable when we disagree, or do we move beyond those things? And I want to talk about that. The second scripture is the flip side of this one. And it's Proverbs 18:19. It says, an offended brother is more unyielding than a fortified city, and disputes are like a barred gates of a citadel. An offended brother is more unyielding than a fortified city. I want to talk about being offended today. That's really what I want to. God's been dealing with me about being offended. And I don't know about you, but I get offended a lot. And quite honestly, people would probably say I offend others a lot. Let me just say right up front, it is not a sin to offend other people. It is not a sin to be offended. It's what we do with it, and whether we offend intentionally to harm, or we just happen to offend because of who we are or what we believe, or other things. So it's not a sin. Well, I guess it would be a sin if we tried to be out there and be offensive, to get people to rattle their cage and that. That's not right. But what do we do when we're offended? What do we do when it comes at us? It says an offended brother, and if you look in some of the scriptures, it'll lead you to Esau and Jacob. Now, I don't know if you know the story of Esau and Jacob, but Esau, he went out and basically he was the firstborn, and he had the birthright. The firstborn always got the basic inheritance, the best blessing, whatever. And he wanted a bowl of soup one day, and his brother had it. Julie, you're not making me pay for the soup, are you? But and Jacob said, "I'll give you a bowl of soup if you give me your birthright." So Esau said, "Well, what good is my birthright if I die?" You know how dramatic we are about life. And so he gave up his birthright. Now, I will say, if you read the story, Jacob cons his father into giving him the birthright. He deceives the father into giving him the birthright. But by rights, he had it, because Esau had given it to him. Okay? So by rights, he had it. So Jacob gets the blessing from the father. And then Esau gets what? Offended. And to the point where, let me get here, Genesis 27. I'm going to flip a little bit. Genesis 27. Boo. Wait a minute, I'm in the wrong. I'm sorry. Yeah, Genesis 27. Wait a minute. That's where it starts. I want 27. Oh, I'll get it here. Okay, I'm sorry. 27:41. Esau held a grudge against Jacob because of the blessing his father had given him. He said to himself, "The days of mourning for my father are near. Then I will kill my brother Jacob." He held a grudge. He said, "I'm going to kill him." Now, I want to give you two words because I want to set that stage for us. I know none of us are like Esau. None of us hold a grudge, and none of us want to kill anybody. And that would never happen to us, that we would lose our birthright. I'll tell you something about that in a minute. But let me give you two words: intentional and strategic. When it comes to being offended, God has said to me, will you be intentional and strategic? Remember those words? Oh, do we? Yes. Do you intend not to be offended before it happens? And do you have a strategy, in a sense, to deal with that when it does? Give an example of that. Just the other day, I was going to work, and I knew one of the managers was there, been there by herself, and I said, "You know what, I'll get her a cup of coffee, because I'm going to get one for me, I'll get a cup of coffee." So I got her a cup of coffee. I'm going to the car, and this is what I hear. "What are you going to do if she doesn't want it? Are you going to be offended?" Well, after all, I got it for her. After all, I didn't go out of my way. I was getting my own, but it cost me $2. But that's what came to my mind. I got there, I gave it to her, I said, "Here, I bought your coffee." She looked at me and said, "I'll drink it because I don't want you to be offended." I said to her, "I already dealt with that." This is what I said. So do you understand what I'm talking about, being strategic and intentional? I already intended that if she offended me, I wouldn't be offended. And I had a strategy. And I said to her, "Look, I already dealt with that. I already determined that if you didn't want it, you never asked me for it. So why should I be offended?" It was a gift. See? She didn't drink it. I wasn't offended. But okay? We okay? Listen, guys, I'm telling you, I'm 65 years old. I know I look young. I only look 25. But I want to save you guys. Believe me. You hear this, it'll save you a lot of grief and aggravation in your life. It really, really will. Jesus came that we would have life, and that to the more abundantly. The devil comes to steal, kill, and destroy. Pure, simple, period. He does that. And one of the things he tries to do is stir up the church. Paul said, "I would not have you ignorant of the wiles of the devil." The wiles, the sly, cunning, deceitful tricks that he has. And one of the things he does within the church and within our lives is he stirs up offenses. He stirs up offenses. That we're offended with one another. And, he has a strategy. The devil, by the way, is not original at all. He's not very creative. He's just ruthless. If you remember, he came to Jesus in the wilderness, and after he was rebuked by Jesus, it says this: he left him for a more opportune time. He's always looking for an opportune time in our lives to get us offended or something. And in the church, it's huge. I would dare say the number one reason people leave churches is they've been offended. I just had a letter from a friend of mine who is pioneering church and finding it's not easy. Because he said, "I've lost a lot of people, and one of the reasons are they are offended at the people." They're offended with one another. They come in and they look at people and they're offended because they're not like they ought to be. We Christians can really be people that get offended. Don't go with those smoke or chew, or go with those who do, or whatever it is. But if we don't look right, if we don't smell right, if we don't act right, we're one of the few people that tend to shoot our wounded. Somebody offended me, I'm going to shoot him. Esau and Jacob. You don't think that happens? We don't sell our birthright? I was telling my wife this morning, I was thinking about it. I think it was I don't sleep well. I can sleep for 4 or 5 hours, I'm up. So I was up about 2:30 this morning playing with all this. And I was thinking about Jacob and Esau, and, well, that's a nice story, but it never really happens today. And then I thought about it. I had a kid brother. He's dead now. But I was 7 or 8 years old when he was born. The oldest one in my family was a girl, so she was the oldest. My brother came next. He was the oldest boy, the firstborn boy. I came next. I was the youngest. I had a position. I had a birthright. The youngest. And 8 years later, my brother came. And I lost my birthright. And I became Earl. I became Earl. I wasn't the firstborn. I wasn't the firstborn son. I wasn't the youngest. I was just Earl. When I was 30 years old, I went to my brother and asked him to forgive me for basically hating him all those years because he took my birthright. Now, I was cordial and I loved my brother. There was anything I'd do for him, but there was still that in my heart because I was offended. What did he do to offend me? He had nothing to do with it. He just got born. He had absolutely nothing to do with it. And I want to tell you that I would dare say 95% of the time that we are offended by somebody, they have not offended us. We have taken the offense. They have done nothing. I mean, they may have done stuff, but I would dare say 95% of the time it is unintentional and not known. Or not known. I was talking to somebody the other day that I gotten mad at work because they wanted to leave. And I wasn't mad at them. I was mad at the situation. They were like the fourth person that wanted to leave, and I was going to be hung out to dry. Now, I misunderstood. They wanted to go home because their kid had 104 fever. I'd want to go home, too. I'd have gone home. And I didn't tell them no. I just said, okay, go ahead. Well, never mind, I won't go. What are you, nuts? But I thought they said they didn't feel good. See? And I wouldn't care. I mean, I really didn't care if they went home. But the person didn't go home. But you know what they did all day long? That no good. They killed me all day long. They did. They killed me all day long. That no good. And we will go there. We're called the number one crippler in the local church. So are we going to be Psalm 133 people? Or are we going to be Proverbs 18 people? Let me read. I don't go by my notes too often. The dictionary says this: offend, to create resentment, anger, or displeasure, to be displeasing to. Then it has a subscript in it. This is Webster's New World Dictionary. To offend implies a causing of displeasure or resentment in another, intentionally or unintentionally, by, listen to this now, wounding his or her feelings, or by causing a breach of his or her sense of propriety. You know what that is? Sense of propriety is there's your sense of rightness. I remember one of the first jobs I went for, I had hair down to my shoulders. And I went for the first job, and behind the guy, he had this little billboard, clean up America, get a haircut. Now, I want to tell you, interviewing with somebody right behind them, it's kind of like, I didn't think I had a chance at all of getting this job because I knew that I walked in and I had offended his sense of priority. I didn't look right. I don't know, I must have done something else right because he hired me. But do you understand what I'm saying? If he was offended by it, he would have taken the offense because that was his idea of what was right. And he's got a right to have that. That's fine. That's not a problem. But when we begin to put things on other people, and that's what to offend, wounding his or her feelings. How many of you really do? How many of you go out to try to hurt somebody's feelings? I mean, some of us do. But most of us don't. How many of you ever hurt somebody's feelings? Yeah. And how many of them have got offended by it? But see, I don't care about them being offended by it. Hear me right. What I'm caring about is, what do I do when it comes back to me? What do I do when I'm offended? What do I do when my feelings are hurt? What do I do when it's not the right, you don't have the right sense? And we think small, by the way. Don't think big. Because it's the little things that get us. We had a guy live with us, a friend of ours, still a friend. Remember Tim? Big Tim. Tim lived with us. And we were playing a board game one day. And my wife will tell you, we were playing a board game. And if you got to a certain level first, you won. Almost automatically. So I said to him, all right. Now I was kind of like the banker. It's kind of like Monopoly. It was a banker. But I was like the banker. And so, if you went by, in this game, unlike Monopoly, you go by payday, you got to get paid. In this game, you had to ask for your pay. Okay? So I was kind of like the banker. So if you went by payday, I would say, and I'm not moving until you get paid. So because that's my sense of propriety. You help one another like that. So all of a sudden I said, all right, I got to go by one more payday and I'll get to the next step and I'll win. And Tim said, oh, you mean like the one you just went by? And I very nicely said, what do you mean? Look, I tell you every time. How come you didn't tell me? And I'm not telling you. He almost moved out of my house over this. We got in. I was livid. I was offended that man would do that. He went in his room and I was like, I did the only good thing I could do. Go to my wife. Tell her how right I was. And how wrong he was. Finally, I don't know, a couple hours later, I think it was. I don't know. And I went in, and here's what he said to me. You're upset because I violated your rules. They weren't the rules of the game. Those are your rules. And because I didn't live by your rules, you were offended by me. He didn't say quite those words, but that's what he said. And I went, you're right, I'm sorry. I'm still ticked. Because I lost the game, but you hear that? We cause, how does it say, displeasure or resentment in another by wounding his or her feelings or causing a breach in his or her sense of propriety. He had a breach in my propriety. He never agreed to it. I once ran for state representative, and I lost. And so the next year, somebody came up to me and said, okay, so now you're going to run for first selectman in town, aren't you? I said, no. Well, wait a minute. Why do you think I paid all that money and supported you to run for state rep? I did it so you'd run for first selectman. And they were ticked. I said, I never agreed to that. But you understand? Their sense of propriety. They had it all laid out. I never agreed to it. And I don't think they talked to me ever since then. They're dead now, so they can't talk to me. But it's all about pride, isn't it? A man's pride brings him low. It's all about my feelings. You hurt my feelings. do. I didn't hurt your feelings. You had your feelings hurt. I didn't do anything. I may have done it, and I'm sorry. Now listen, you listen. There are things that you can get offended by, but it's how you deal with it. Like for instance, if, the last 3 times my wife and I were supposed to meet, she's late. And she doesn't call me. Should I be offended? Absolutely. But how do I deal with it? You do it this way. I just want to share with you, give you a little example. Is that okay? Especially with you. No, but you don't say like we usually do. Every time we make an appointment, you never show up. Is that true? No. But if I said to her, the last 3 times we made an appointment, you didn't show up on time, that's okay. But it's a little bit of a problem. But the problem I had is you didn't call me, and it made me feel unimportant and worthless. See the difference? Now, here's the hard part. If she owns it and says, I'm sorry, I can accept it or reject it. Or if she says, take a flying leap, I had plenty of excuses, too bad, then now I can be offended, or I can be intentional and strategic and say, I'm not going to be. I'm not going to let her beat me twice. She already beat me once. I'm not going to let her beat me twice. How many times do we get beat? 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's all her. No, it ain't. I'm doing it. You guys okay? I haven't offended you yet? Son of a God, I haven't done it right yet. I remember one day in here, years ago, we had a visitor or whatever. I think it was a visitor, maybe it was somebody who came to the church, I remember, but I said something about going to college, and they looked at me and they said, you went to college? Let's see, we'll be intentional and strategic. I'm not going to get offended at that. Those are real things, right? We get offended by them. We once had, God's honest truth, we once someone to leave this church. We used to send out birthday cards. I don't know if you still do. We used to send out birthday cards. And the woman sent them out, didn't get it in the mail on time. So the woman would have it during the week. I don't know if you remember that. And so she brought it in on Sunday, and she gave it to her on Sunday and apologized. Said, I'm really sorry, something happened and I didn't get a chance to do it, and yada, yada. And the woman was offended and wouldn't take the apology and left the church because she was offended. The little foxes. Wasn't any theological thing in it. Now, I will say she came back 2 months later. So I'm not going to use her name. She's not here any longer, but I will not use her name because many of you would probably know who it was. I once had somebody leave the church because I wasn't political enough. I just got done running for office. But you know what it was? I didn't agree with their propriety, their rightness about a particular issue. They wanted to go shoot the abortion doctors, and I didn't. I'd rather do something different, like get them saved and let Jesus deal with them. We okay? You can say, how about the Bible? Esau and Jacob. How about Joseph and his brothers? There's Joseph. He's having dreams. He tells the people his dreams. Now, we don't know how he told his dreams. He might have told his brothers. But I don't think he did. I just think he said, hey, I had this dream and, yada, yada, and this is what's going to happen. And what does his brother say? Here comes the dreamer, and they plotted how to kill him, it says. And what did he do? He just tell them the dreams he had. How about Moses? You want to talk about church split? Moses, he marries a Canaanite woman. And his brother and sister, Aaron and Miriam, said, who's he think he is? Is he the only one that heard from God? And you read it. It says because they were ticked off because he married a Canaanite woman. Now I'm not saying it wasn't wrong. I don't know but they were ticked off. How many, never mind. Somebody gets married, my sister married quite a few people that we didn't like. Did I say that right? But we didn't throw her out of church. Out of the family. She's still family, man. She's just our crazy sister. She's the weird one. Well, not so weird. But you understand what I'm saying? Moses, Aaron, and Miriam, they said, this is what they said. Who does he think he is? Is he the only one that can hear from God? We can hear from God too. Come follow me, basically. Come on, guys. You follow me, the heck with him. He's a jerk. Because they were offended. Mary and Martha. Huh? Martha runs to Jesus. Jesus, don't you care that I'm in here slaving away in the kitchen and she's just sitting there with you? I used to get ticked at they used to get ticked at me more than them. But they would have to do the dishes and I wouldn't, I'd goof off but again, Martha is offended because Mary isn't helping her. We ought to all be doing this together. And God says, hey, take it easy. Jesus said, take it easy, She's doing the right thing. She's just here. Or how about the disciples? I like this one. The mother of two of the disciples comes to Jesus and says, when you go to heaven, basically when you ascend your kingdom, can my son sit on your left hand and the other one on your right? Now the kids didn't say anything. This is mom. That's mom being mom. Right? Because mom is, and if you ever know Jewish moms and their sons, believe me, there's God and son. They are. That's the hierarchy in the Jewish family. So they said, can this one sit on the right and that one sit on the left? And the other disciples were ticked off, it says. They were offended. Now I'm sure they were offended. Who's your mom think she is? Well, who do you think you are? What'd they do? They didn't do anything. Mom did it. That's what I'm trying to say is a lot of times it's unintentional. Nobody knows it, whatever. Okay, so we've got a lot biblical, intentional and strategic. Let me tell you, we have two choices when we're offended, I believe. You can say we have a lot more, that's okay, we'll argue that out. But we have two basic choices. We can resolve it, or we can rehearse it. Remember, I said the person who wanted to go home and didn't go home from work, all afternoon they rehearsed it. He wouldn't let me go home. My kid's sick. I didn't know these things. He's a miserable, whatever. I hate that guy. How do I know this? I talked to the person afterwards. Because I found out that they were really ticked. And I said, hey, well, I don't ever remember you telling me that. You called me a liar. I didn't call you a liar. I didn't know you said that. I'm sorry I didn't hear you. But I didn't do that intentionally. Thank God the person would accept it. But all that day, they rehearsed it. And got madder and madder and madder, and I got deader and deader and deader. Because, you know what, when you do something, like resale, it means you sell it again. Do you ever think of what rehearse means? What's a hearse? Just a thought. Nothing about it. Seriously. We rehearse it. We keep killing him and killing him and killing him. I'll never forgive that sucker. And I'm going to go get allies. We don't go get confidence to help us solve the problem. We go get allies to help us. Do you know what he did to me? Do you know what she did to me? Be a cold day in somewhere before I go to their house. By the way, God specializes in cold days. Just want you to know that. I thought about that. You know, this is just an aside, I hope you don't mind, and I hope I don't offend you, but people say it'll be a cold day in hell. Like, like it's something nice, or, like it's going to be, you know what? If it was a cold day in hell, those poor people would be tormented even worse. Can you see a Floridian up here in the winter? Just a thought. I'm just, I think out of the box. I don't mean to offend anybody, but you got to think outside the box here, guys. But we rehearse it. We put them to death over and over. Esau said, right? I'm ticked. I got a grudge. As soon as Dad dies and the mourning period's over, you're mine. Let me tell you what. Between the time it happened and the time something was done, what was Esau doing? Rehearsing. How many, no, I don't want to know how many of you guys rehearse. Okay? The other thing you can do is, just let me say this as an aside too. God will often offend your head to reveal your heart. So the fact of the matter is somebody may be a tool of God to offend you, just to reveal where your heart is. Maybe, I don't know. No, God, my God's not like that. Well, I just offended you because I went over your proprietary. Because God's on your side. He's trying to get you to live a better life. And one of the things that kill our lives is being offended. Have you ever seen, really seriously, do you know somebody that's always offended? They're miserable. They're miserable. Me. I get tired of hearing them. I can't hear you. Anyway, I'm sorry. And the other choice is to resolve it. Resolve. Okay? We rehearse or we resolve. We resolve the relationship. I was talking about how do I intentional and strategic. Am I intentional about resolving offenses? Or am I intentional about being right? About revenge? Getting back at? Just so you know, God says, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, I'll repay. We just don't like the way he repays. He blesses them too much for us. We want to kill them. Oh, we already have. They just didn't dry yet. Darn it. But we can resolve the relationship. Now, I can't control what the other person does. But I can control what I do. Take your hands out of your pocket. I'm sorry. My wife told me, don't put your hands in your pocket. Don't jiggle your change. I had my hand in my pocket. Sorry. We can resolve the meaning. How many times have you ever talked to somebody about what they said to you and they said, I didn't mean that. I didn't mean it that way. You look really nice today. Oh, did I look lousy yesterday? I didn't mean that. I joke with people like that. But some people take offense with it. Because they actually think I'm saying, you didn't look nice yesterday. When they say you look. So I don't try to do that. Do you understand what I'm saying? Are we okay? Are we all right? So the meaning. And then the intent. How many times people said to you, I didn't intend that. That wasn't my intention. But what the issue is, what do we do with that? Will we resolve it and move above it? Or are we going to stay in it and get captured by it? The issue of it is, are we going to be conquered by it or are we going to conquer? Because we can just suck up offenses. And then we play with them. And then we go get allies about them. Oh, I'm not getting an ally. I'm just getting somebody to share it with so they can help me. There's a great biblical word for that. bull. It ain't true. We're just trying to get everybody on our side so that we can be right. We tell a story, true story. There's a little woman lived in town, feisty little woman. This is a lot of fun, if you like feisty little women. My wife was over there one day, and she had a housekeeper, and the housekeeper was supposed to be there on Wednesday. And the woman said to the housekeeper, "You're not supposed to be here today, it's Tuesday." My wife said to the woman, let me use Margaret, because I don't want to, she's dead, doesn't matter, but said to Margaret, "No, today's Wednesday." No, it's Tuesday. I got the newspaper right here. It says Tuesday. No, it's Wednesday. She's supposed to be here. Well, either you're wrong or I'm mistaken. I'm mistaken. Say it. I'm having a hard time with that. Don teeth, or I'm mistaken. Now get that. Either you're wrong or I'm mistaken. I'm not wrong. Because I got to be right. I can be mistaken. That's okay. Did you hear me? And we'll protect our rightness. That's why I'm talking about being intentional. It said you heard the trumpet blow, you'll have a new, with the scripture, right? When you hear the trumpet blow, we're going to have a new, you're going to hear the trumpet today and be new. The trumpet's blowing. Are you going to be intentional and strategic about how you deal with being offended? It's not a sin to be offended. It's okay if you're offended. What are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with it? The majority of us do. Let me just, a couple of scriptures. I'm almost done. You guys are great. Where am I? Proverbs. Proverbs 19. Here's where I want to be. Well, I want to be this. A man's wisdom gives him patience. It is his glory to overlook an offense. You want to have some glory? Now, the world will say you're a sucker. You ought to get back at him. But God says it is to his glory to overlook an offense. Strategic and intentional. When all else fails, there's this. It's what Jesus said. Forgive them, Father, because they know not what they do. I want to be forgiven when I offend somebody because a lot of times I don't know I'm doing it. I know that there are people who are offended for me just because of the way I am. I know that. I know when I pastored, I didn't fit a lot of people's molds, and I offended them. That's some of the reason I had a 12-year hiatus, because they never invited me, because I didn't fit their mold. I can't change that. I'm not going to be something different, because God made me this way. Now, that doesn't mean I don't change. Well, God made me this way, so tough luck. No, that's not true. But what am I going to do? I want to move ahead. I want to resolve relationships. I'll tell you what, I have some really close friends. And the ones that are friends, the closest. And the one that's the closest friend, my wife, we have resolved offenses once or twice. Couple times. A day. You want a depth of relationship, learn how to resolve offenses. I could go a whole thing about Jesus offended and how to deal with Jesus offending you, because that's biblical. He will offend you, by the way. We are offended by Jesus. But that's another. But the issue is, what are you going to do? For me, I want glory. I want to learn how to overlook them. I want to be able to say, forgive them, Father. They don't know what they do. And I don't want to hear somebody's voice. Oh, yeah, they did. That's the enemy. That's the wiles of the enemy. Just trying to. No, they didn't. I would dare say 95% of the time, offenses are unintentional. You choose. The church going to be a Psalm 133 church? Or the Proverbs church? Where you shut each other down? Is your life going to be one of resolve or one of rehearsal? Where you play the same thing over and over again? God bless.